Hey, Lord of the Rings fans! Roman Diesel is back. Gonna be doing something a little different today, not doing the Middle Earth role playing or the Lord of the Rings strategy battle game. Delving back into the movies that Peter Jackson made of the Lord of the Rings, the trilogy. Now, before I start, I love the trilogy. I waited, say, 20 years since Ralph Bakshi did his Lord of the Rings for someone to actually come and make it, and Peter Jackson and his team did a fantastic job. Of course, it's not perfect. Nothing ever is, especially when you're dealing with a book and a backstory as rich as Lord of the Rings. Now, for the most part, I understand the changes that were made simply because of pacing reasons, people who had never read the book and wouldn't have a clue what the hell's going on, and other fun stuff. So I do understand most of the changes. There are a few things that bother me. Now, I'm probably nitpicking on a lot of these. So we're going to be looking at the first scene right now that I found. Like, from the time of the opening credits to all the way to Bree, I had no real problems. Like, the conspiracy on Mass would have been kind of nice with Fatty Bulger to go through, and then the old forest. But I really wanted to see the Barrow-wights. And we never got to see them. Instead, this is what we got to see. We got to see Aragorn distributing swords. And I felt that was kind of not right, simply because, especially with Merry, these swords come from the Barrow Downs. They're made by the Dunedain specifically to slay the creatures of Angmar and the Witch King of Angmar. And Merry, his sword stabs the Witch King behind the knee and breaks the spell that binds him. And then Eowyn finishes the job. So Merry, his sword came all the way from the Barrow Downs. It had a long history in itself. And just by giving swords like this, it seemed like it meant nothing. So I wasn't too pleased. Again, they should have had the Barrow-wights in the extended version. Aragorn distributing swords kind of reminded me of Monty Python. See, it reminds me too much of Monty Python. Strange women lying in pond. So that's how that whole scene reminded me of in Lord of the Rings. Just Monty Python, distributing swords. So this is the next scene that really bothered me with the birth of the Uruk-hai. Now I know Peter Jackson went in and they one of the claims that how orcs are made was because they come from the slimes and pits of the earth. But really they were a mix of, the Uruk-hai were just genetic breeding. They didn't come out of the ground like this, they were bred. And then he'd been breeding them for at least 50, 60 years. Saruman had. And he probably mixed them with the Dunnish blood so that they could operate in sunlight. So having them come out of it like this, just all of a sudden, fully formed, it was kind of dumb, I thought. I didn't like how they did that. Saruman had been breeding orcs with men for a long time to get the right mix. So the other thing, this is just a minor thing that bothered me, was that they treated Aragorn like he was the exiled son of a former king, instead of being a chieftain in a long line. Because there's something like 15 chieftains before and Aragorn is the last of the chieftains of old Arnor, the Arthedanian lineage. But in the movie, Peter Jackson made it seem like he was the son or the grandson of the last king of Gondor, and Boromir just realizes it's him. See, it sounds like Aerith, his father, was the last king of Gondor. Like, Boromir would have no idea who this guy is. Now, in the book, Aragorn throws down his sword, his broken sword. So that scene kind of bothered me a little bit. It's a minor thing. But in the end, it's one of those things that happen. Because again, people who never read the book wouldn't understand the fact that Gondor hasn't had a king in over almost 1,000 years. They wouldn't understand that why would a country have no king for 1,000 years, just be run by stewards, and then all of a sudden the heir comes back after 1,000 years. That's a long time when everyone else has forgotten about the kingdom of Arnor and Arthedain. So it is a minor. It is a minor thing. So the next thing that bothered me is when they're on the top of the pass of the Carajars, trying to cross the Misty Mountains, and all of a sudden they're going to sail by snow, and there's Saruman throwing snow at Moria. If you look at a map, that's miles away. There's no way in hell Saruman has that kind of power to create that thing. So I didn't like the fact that Saruman was the one who created the avalanches and the massive snow, because in the book they make it appear that the mountain itself is an entity, is an actual character in the book, a minor one. He's kind of like a Tom Bombadil, except for more malevolent. Malevolent? I never pronounced that word. And that he doesn't like anything that walks on 2 feet. So the fact that Saruman's throwing snow, I didn't like that, considering how many miles it is. I mean, it's at least 200 miles without even thinking about it. Like, I'd have to go back and recheck. But it's a long way away. I don't think Saruman's that powerful enough to send snow that far. And how he would know the exact time. I know the crows came, but the crows can't fly 200 miles that fast. It's impossible. So the impossibility of that just boggled my mind. Okay, this last thing of the Fellowship of the Ring that really bothered me, when they're at the west gate of Moria. And okay, we know the Watcher in the Water is there. They figure out how to get in. And they walk into the west gate of Moria. Like, Gimli's going on about roast boar on a spit and all that stuff. And then all of a sudden they see this battle. And they come across all these dead orcs and dwarves. And they make like they're going to run out and go down towards the pass of Kellenarden, or the Gap of Rowan. And then Frodo gets dragged by this Watcher. So I didn't really like that. Like, in the book, you don't really know what happened to Balin until you get to the Chamber of Marzubal. So I felt it kind of ruined that surprise, because now you know that the colony is dead and Balin is dead. So I wasn't too thrilled with that. So those are the things I didn't like about in the Fellowship of the Ring. I could also mention the size of the Balrog. Like the fact there's goblins and not orcs in this battle scene. And the goblins are like little insects crawling. There wasn't that many. There's no food in Moria. There's not enough food for a large population of creatures. So I thought this was kind of dumb. But the fact they're surrounded by all these goblins. Like, the dwarves would have wiped them all out when they first came in, and then it was more coming over the Silver Lode from Orthanc, and then you got the Balrog. The Balrog, I think, is too big in this movie. It's cool. I love the Balrog. Don't get me wrong. The Balrog was an awesome design, but it's just way too big in comparison to what it was in the book, how it's portrayed in the book. Even Ralph Baci's Balrog wasn't that big. Like, something that size, how would it get around the smaller passages of Moria? Down to the last thing that really bothered me about Fellowship of the Ring, and that was when Frodo tries to give the ring to Aragorn, and Aragorn declines, and then you see all the Uruk-hai. Now in the book, Aragorn goes looking for Frodo but never finds him, And he actually never kills any Uruk-hai. Boromir kills a whole bunch. As do Legolas and Gimli. Because Legolas is looking for spare arrows because he's used all his. So Gimli and Legolas have been hunting orcs in the woods. But Aragorn doesn't get to do any fighting. He's going this way and that. He's getting pulled in the wrong direction all the time. So you have Frodo here. Offers the ring, kind of. Shows it to Aragorn. Aragorn refuses it. I'm not going to show the whole thing here. Yep, see, he puts it away. And then Aragorn notices that Sting is glowing. It's a pretty dramatic scene. I understand why they put it in to add more tension. And to make Aragorn that much more heroic. So Frodo runs away. The orcs never even spot Frodo in the entire thing. He's got his ring on and he heads down to the boats. Now, Lurtz wasn't a named character in the book, but he is a pretty badass guy. I'll have to give him that. And the way the Uruk-hai looked was pretty deadly. But there's so many of them, they could have gang rushed Aragorn in a minute. Like a rugby or football tackle, and they would have had him in no time. So this scene was a little too much, but it is a cool battle scene. You gotta admit that. Does all the Alepic rowing, and then here comes Gimli and Aragorn. Here comes Gimli and Legolas. So I wasn't really a big fan of Aragorn killing that many guys. He killed a few, would have been okay. It was a cool scene. It was. So didn't bother me that much because it was so cool, the whole scenery and how they set up these fight scenes. But the fact that he killed massive amounts of orcs and then he took on Lurtz himself. And Boromir, he did his job. Even Merry and Pippin, even though technically I think it's only Merry that cuts off a few hands before their own swords are taken away from them. And Pippin doesn't do much. But in the movie, they make him stab a couple of Uruk-hai. So that was a minor thing that bothered me. But all in all, Fellowship of the Ring was a very excellent movie. A good introduction to Lord of the Rings. In something that would have been considered unfilmable all the way to the 1990s. The early 90s, no one could film it. And then Peter Jackson took on the role. The cast was great. Everything was great about the movie. But those are just little things that bothered me. Now, there are other things in the Fellowship of the Ring that kind of bother me. The whole thing where they jump onto the ferry and then they cross the river and then all of a sudden they go to Bree. Where's Crick Hollow? Where's the Old Forest? Where's the Barrow Downs? That whole segment, I didn't like that. They just skipped it. And then Lothlorien, there's scenes there, but it's such a small detail. But anyway, all you Lord of the Rings fans out there, let me know if you guys agree with my list or disagree. Let me know in the comments section. What things bothered you the most about the Fellowship of the Ring from a scene standpoint? Leave comments in the comment section. Hit the like button. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. Until next time, I'm Roman Daisel. I am out of here.